people which really were among the first generation of internet pioneers and had substantial influence on the business. The first one is our guest from the United States, Jim Breyer. Jim is one of the leading VCs in the United States. He invested in some companies that you will be hearing about them, some startups like, what is the name of the company with face, started with Facebook. I think you were the first investor, one of the first investors. And this is only one of a very long list of other very successful companies. Jim, in contrary to many great VCs, but still are active mainly in what they call in Silicon Valley the bicycle paradigm, which means they are willing to invest in companies that they can reach only by bicycle. Jim is a man, really a man of the world. He invests in all parts of the world. He travels a lot. He knows really the in and outs of the industry and world affairs. And the second gentleman is the person that is really responsible for this event, Mr. Paul-Bernhard Kallen. Mr. Kallen is the CEO of Burda Media, the company which is creating DLD. And we have, unfortunately, cannot see the audience, but I can tell you, Mr. Kallen, that the audience is now roaring in enthusiasm, so you will approve the next DLD version. I asked Mr. Kallen, how should I introduce him? And he said, you should introduce me as a curious human being. And as we know, curiosity is really the mother of everything, is the mother of innovation, is the mother of invention, is the mother of entrepreneurship. Kallen, since he took the helm of Burda Media, the company grew leaps and bounds. And I'm not going to say any more good things because people then will think I'm trying to flatter you, which I'm really doing. So without further ado, Mr. Kallen, Mr. Breyer, the floor and the video camera is yours.
Thanks, Josie.
Thank you.
Introduction. And maybe I have a word in advance. So on the conference, you have seen interesting stuff about health. You will remember 23andMe yesterday, or the BioNTech founder on what he did in Corona, what the vaccination he developed in such a short period of time. And we discussed about the preparation for the next pandemic. So what Jim and I would like to do now is discuss a little bit about the investing aspect of health, especially AI in health. Before going into it, I would like to have a word about Jim. There are many venture capitalists out there, and many invest because others invest, and many think investing is about employing money. That's the opposite to Jim. Extremely curious, always trying to find out what's really going on, getting his own clear perspective and a clear conviction investor. And that made him one of the earliest investors in social media. When most people did not know that something like this is coming up, he was already invested and was very close to the development. And I think that big movement, social media, is something where he is one of the godfathers. So thanks, Jim, for being with me. AI and health. So I listened to you a few years ago when you have been giving a presentation on AI on the DLD conference. So it's good to catch up. I saw you 2 years ago at a conference in Seattle where you gave an introduction on AI with Harry Shum. It was a workshop with Harry Shum, so one of the gurus in AI, I think. And afterwards we had a little chat, and I found out that your real passion is health, is AI in health. So you look at it as being a vertical of AI, like media or like finance. My first question in your direction is around a surprise. The first surprise is the approach. So you see a mega trend in IT. You look into what does it mean for verticals, then you dive into the vertical, and then you try to figure out what is a good place to be positioned, what is a great team, and stuff like that. You seem to be starting with a hypothesis. Is that understanding correct, and why are you doing that?
Well, first, if I may, it is just such an honor and pleasure to be back at DLD. I have such fond memories going back more than a decade, of course. And yes, the first public questions I received about Facebook potentially being a public company was on stage at DLD over a decade ago. And again, a decade ago, I remember spending time with Daniel Ek of Spotify, and then we spent some more time as we made the trek to Davos, and ended up investing 10 years ago, almost exactly to the day, in Spotify, and just traded messages with Daniel this morning on some next generation AI technology-oriented opportunities in the world of music and media, where Spotify could potentially be a great partner. And so it's a genuine pleasure. And with all that's going on in the world, being together with old friends, new friends, part of the DLD community is very meaningful as we think about global investing. So I'll step back and just address the question very quickly. And that is, yes, everyone comes at investing in a certain way. And what has worked for me over a couple decades, starting with a high-level hypothesis, spending a lot of time with academics at the top universities around the world, with the top entrepreneurs, with leaders in the public and private sector, and constantly testing and retesting the hypothesis. And so in 2004 and 2005, it was all around social media. I had looked at Friendster, a company called Tickle, MySpace, and then met Mark Zuckerberg when he was 20 years old, not yet 21, and knew going in, after spending time with Mark, that his vision, how he thought about social networking, was where I wanted to make a big bet. And so invested $12 million, $1 million personally, $11 million in the Series A, and was on the board for many years. And Mark and Cheryl have been great mentors and friends. Very similar 4 years ago in the world of AI. I started spending a lot of time with a lot of the entrepreneurs, a lot of the academics at the finest institutions around the world, be they in Beijing, in Boston, Palo Alto, Europe, and felt that we were at the very beginning, for a lot of reasons, to see very significant positive changes in many ways around what AI could do. And some of that was generalized. Some of that was focused on verticals in media, where AI was being used on some of the companies where I was on the board, Legendary Entertainment, 21st Century Fox, to really focus on better recommendation engines, much of what we see in the Netflix and Amazon AI worlds. But I also felt it was moving so quickly that there were very significant verticals that had not yet been upended by technology, in particular medicine and healthcare, where now the promise of AI, the promise of the data that resided in many of our best medical schools and academic institutions, and the interdisciplinary approach that was needed to bring great chemists, biologists, neuroscientists, linguists together with great AI and ML talent from Amazon and Facebook and many of the Bay Area and Seattle companies, that would be the start of a glorious age. And in fact, after 8 investments, now just in AI and medicine, as well as global investing in China, Europe. I think that AI sits at the heart of not only medicine, which we'll talk about today, but my goodness, the wonderful fintech opportunities. Making a new investment in a wonderful company called Viva Wallet in Europe, in the fintech space, where they've thought through how to use AI in profound ways. And so looking back, if I could advise my 26 or 27-year-old entrepreneurial self and venture capital self, where would I spend time? I would be digging deep into computing, machine learning, AI, and then within that, finding certain vertical specialties where it is possible now for the great next generation of entrepreneurs and venture capitalists to make a profound difference.
Thanks, Jim. Maybe I try to go in a couple of details and cover some questions, some more specific questions maybe. So when I heard the first time you saying AI and health, I thought it's biotech. So today I tried to prepare myself in order to not do the same mistake a second time. And from CB Insight, I learned that AI in health is companies selling AI SaaS to healthcare clients or using AI to develop products for the healthcare market. So when I look into your portfolio, I find some of this definition, but absolutely not all. So what's the field that you would like to cover and what does it mean for you, AI in health?
Well, wonderful question. And again, it is such a robust segment. We in Silicon Valley, the Bay Area, I love hearing, by the way, about the different Bay Areas, whether it's Finland, Southern China. When we were up at the Microsoft CEO Summit, they talk about something in the water because Jeff Bezos, of course, and Bill Gates are neighbors. So there must be something about the Bay Areas around the world. But what really is astounding is how AI is affecting so many different aspects of healthcare delivery, and medicine. And so it is very possible to build an extremely multi-dimensional, robust AI healthcare portfolio, which covers so many different businesses. So I'm a proud investor, of course, in 23andMe. The fundamental premise there was simply the data that 23andMe had built was extraordinarily valuable, as we heard, very valuable to someone like GlaxoSmithKline, and very valuable potentially to new medical breakthroughs, and a very defined large set of data, very much along the Google approach of find massive amounts of data, build that data, use AI and ML expertise to then get particular insights into that data, and may very well lead to better drug discovery. So that in the world of drug discovery, there are 3 to 5 fascinating new companies that are being formed where the AI robotic image-based drug development process sits at the core of what they're doing. And some are coming at it with completely new technology with an AI ML focus. Many are coming at it with a data set that has been built at Memorial Sloan Kettering or MD Anderson or Harvard Medical School or UCSF. They have the life sciences, biological, chemical data, in many cases, very specific patient data, be it breast cancer, prostate cancer, but they don't have the ability to unlock the insights. And so part of the role as venture capitalists is we know how to help these companies move quickly, navigate the opportunity space, and recruit those fabulous Google and Facebook and Amazon and Apple and Microsoft alumni who have spent 10 years working in these technology companies, but who want something very mission-driven. And so it's this combination of skill sets right now that is leading to an explosion of very positive opportunities around AI and medicine.
So I want to give the chance to the people to learn something extremely specific for investing in AI and health. So I would love to understand what's your current most important investment hypothesis.
Well, it's very simple. One, never before has it been more important to be a global investor. And we talked about back in the day when it was possible to drive within 30 miles of Cupertino, Palo Alto, and Menlo Park and see the lion's share of great technology investments. Partly because my parents were Hungarian immigrants. I've always been fascinated with the European models of education and have had very positive outcomes at Spotify and elsewhere. And now there are so many top medical practices and institutions in Europe where there is tremendous medical breakthrough technology that's being important. And then we talk about China. And again, very often we hear about the AI race, the space race between AI opportunities, particularly in the US versus China. But my goodness, there are so many social goods that come from international and global cooperation that the days of just saying it's winner take all, that might be the case in certain cloud-oriented businesses, but not when it comes to medicine and AI, where we're all in it together and we can all agree that if we are working in a cooperative fashion, that is the only way we can level the field and truly think about eradicating prostate and breast cancer in our lifetime. Think about fundamental new drug discovery. And so there are 8 investments in China. There are 12 in the US and several in Europe, where it's exactly that global fertilization that is so necessary if we're going to build 10 years from now, call it the most interesting market cap companies that have a deep AI core. And that's what's so exciting.
Jim, let me pick your brain on one of the roadblocks that I think is around quality of data, integrity of data. I remember Google years ago predicting that they can see the flu coming before it comes. We learned that they were predicting winter instead and forgetting the summer flu. I saw a quote of David Agus a couple of days ago where he told us that it takes 100 steps to sequence proteomics. And if the same person does it with the same protein on Monday and does it again on Tuesday, the result is different. So if you are not able to stabilize the process and harmonize the process and make sure that it is really well defined, the outcome is rubbish. So what's your thinking about quality of data and how much does it restrict the area where you are investing in?
Well, it's an absolutely wonderful question because it's one of the many elements of investing in AI and medicine. There are a number of topics that, of course, as an investor, they keep me up at night. And one is the data integrity and what is the right way to come at the data from a security and privacy standpoint. So if we step back on 23andMe, the approach, as I mentioned, is beautifully reminiscent of a Google or Facebook approach where find massive amounts of data and then have an ability through very careful privatization and security to unlock some of the data so algorithms can run across the massive amounts of data and lead to very good outcomes, potentially new drug discovery as one example, and better drug discovery for sure. We all know the macro statistics of how it takes $1 billion to at least to build a new drug that's efficacious, and with AI and ML, that could be shortened and reduced. But one of the insights I came to about 4 years ago was that there are very high quality pockets of data that are more important for addressing AI in medicine. And much of that data resides at our very best medical schools, our best universities, and our best labs. And so that led me to, when I was looking at applying AI and ML solutions to prostate and breast cancer, spend a lot of time with our top medical schools. in the United States. MD Anderson, of course, a wonderful hospital system, Mass General, Brigham and Women's, all Harvard affiliated, Dana-Farber, of course, Stanford Medical School, UCSF. And I came to the conclusion the best way to start in really making a fundamental difference with clinical applications, biomarkers, and diagnostics, start with Memorial Sloan Kettering and spend 6 months negotiating with Memorial Sloan Kettering in New York with their computational pathology team about what a license deal equity stake might look like in a brand new company called Page AI. I had to balance what the trustees wanted, what the physicians wanted, what the postdocs wanted, but what was really important for patients. And so came to the conclusion that a new company with great development speed, with an understanding of clinical adoption, understanding sales cycles will be long, but also understanding that labs often move faster than hospitals, put that in a new company, hire fabulous AI and ML graduates of Google and Facebook and others, but start with that deep library of digitized slides so that for those who have been through a prostate or breast cancer process, it takes 10 days often to get the slides back. With AI, ML, we can do that in 2 days. False negatives, false positives are all addressed much better. And so the question I received a couple years ago at DLD and Davos was, you can't put physicians out of business. We'll always need physicians, the gut instinct. And so it was black and white relative to the importance of AI. And it's never that simple. AI and ML as a great tool for computational pathologists and doctors who are addressing prostate, breast cancer, rare blood disorders. They need the tools of AI, ML running against data sets to make better informed decisions. And these are at the best hospitals around the world and medical schools. We all know, my goodness, we need second opinions. We need to improve the analysis of medicine when it comes to rural hospitals, hospitals that are not only around the US in non-academic centers, but around the world. And that's part of the promise of navigating what the AI opportunity space is. My thesis is start with a phenomenal set of data that resides at our top medical schools and academic institutions. Find a way then to harness that by hiring AI and ML startup-oriented, very quick to learn AI and ML experts, the best of the best from Amazon and Apple and elsewhere. Put this in a company where there's deep day-to-day mutual interaction. Always be thinking about the disruptive technology and how to reduce the clinical sales cycle, which we know is very long. Understand at some point biopharma plays a significant role in the Series C or D. And that's the model now that I've used, whether it's Page AI or a company that's a spin out of UCSF focused on drug delivery. Health tech in so many ways is being upended by these wonderful technologies that can suddenly enable postdocs, doctors, medical schools to really make a very big difference. And finally, I will say, one of the things I've loved doing over the last 4 years is reading the great medical journals of the world. Nature, New England School of Medicine's wonderful drafts, and who's publishing. Often 2 to 3 years from now, those articles that are being published today will form the basis for a great set of next generation AI companies. And so a lot of venture capitalists and entrepreneurs ask me, where am I getting my ideas? And it's spending time with the dean of Harvard Medical School, George Daly. It's reading the New England Journal of Medicine on a religious basis. It's talking and reaching out to the great doctors and medical professionals at Oxford and Cambridge and Imperial College. And that is what is so fascinating now with AI in medicine. It's multidisciplinary. It's global. And so bringing these pools of expertise together is what is so fascinating as a social good, where we can make big differences, whether it's vaccine development, prognosis, clinical development, or making a very big difference day to day for patients, doctors, in terms of understanding outcomes and allowing patients to have more control over understanding why a certain therapy has been chosen.
Jim, thanks a lot. Very, very insightful. So I understand now better why you are with universities and why you work with the 7 universities you have been mentioning. Maybe I think there will be many people from university in our feed right now.
Sorry, I have to interrupt you, Dr. Kallen. I'm so sorry. We have a strong program, and I'm the master of disaster. I'm the master of the schedule, and it's such a pity, Jim and Paul, that I have to be so strict. But what came out very clear, that the future of healthcare will be changed completely along opportunities in ML and then in AI. I'm very grateful, Jim and Paul, for your initiating our thoughts in this. I think our century will be the next. It will be very much influenced by the outcomes of life sciences, and as always, Jim and Paul, you're on the forefront of seeing it. Thank you so much. It was very inspirational and very, thought-provoking. Let's go deeper in it. By the way, Jim, we have a fantastic artist now. You're an art collector. You should look at the next session. Tino Segal. Have you heard from him? What?
Jim, I see you for beer in 2 minutes.
Jim, he's frozen. Jim, it was nice seeing you. Have a good beer with Paul. Ciao.